How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to be talking about California's law enforcement officer exemptions. I'm going to give you some good examples of how California treats law enforcement officers better than the average citizens when it comes to gun rights in the state. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think that normal California citizens should be treated the same as law enforcement officers when it comes to our Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to one of the main sponsors of the channel, that being Thorson Customs. Thorson Customs does a ton to support this channel and support us here in the state of California. They have California compliant parts and features that you can purchase from them from their website. And if you're interested in taking a look at their products, I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So for those of you watching this in the state of California, and even for some of you who aren't watching and maybe you're in another state, you're very aware that California has some of the most restrictive gun rights out of any state. This state goes above and beyond to restrict our Second Amendment rights. But along with that, a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of these laws are written in a way so that law enforcement officers and various other categories of individuals are expressly exempt from the laws that otherwise law-abiding citizens have to follow. So in this video, I'm just gonna go through some of the most common ones, and we're just gonna discuss pretty much how ridiculous this is, that the state of California treats this category of individuals better than just normal law-abiding individuals. So first and foremost, let's talk about California's handgun roster. If you're not familiar with the state of California or its laws, California has a list of handguns that they deem to be safe and other handguns that are unsafe and therefore are off roster. So there are handguns in the state of California that you can go and purchase, that a normal law-abiding individual can walk into a gun store and purchase. And then there are handguns that a normal law-abiding individual cannot walk into a gun store and purchase. So for example, you could walk into a gun store and purchase a Gen 3 Glock, but you could not walk into a gun store and buy a Gen 4 or Gen 5 because they are not on the handgun roster. But when it comes to law enforcement officers are expressly exempt from this handgun roster. They can go and purchase off-roster handguns, which creates this weird dynamic in the state of California when it comes to gun stores, where the gun stores will have handguns that they say, hey, normal law-abiding individuals can purchase, and then right next to it, there will be a handgun and they'll say LEO only or law enforcement officers only. So there will be a handgun in a case that they say, hey, normal individuals, you can't have this, you can't touch this, but law enforcement officers, this one's safe. And also you can purchase all the other ones that law-abiding individuals can have as well. And if you want to find where this law enforcement exemption is, this is in California Penal Code 32000, I believe is what it is. So what this penal code says is that a law enforcement officer of any expressly stated agencies, for example, highway patrol, sheriff's departments, just normal police departments, correctional officers, a law enforcement officer of those departments can go purchase an off-roster handgun. They do not have a limit on the type of handguns that they can purchase. So that's one of the first express exemptions that law enforcement officers benefit from here in the state of California. And this is an express example of where California carves out a category of gun rights where they say, hey, law enforcement officers, you're better than normal law-abiding individuals. You can have these rights, but normal individuals cannot have these rights. They can't have access to these guns. Now, this has created this weird dynamic as well in the state of California where law enforcement officers can go and purchase an off-roster handgun. They can lawfully be in possession of that. They can have it. If they decide they don't want it, then they could go and sell it to just a normal individual. But the price and the market for that off-roster handgun is skyrocketed. Pretty much you're talking about doubling or maybe even tripling the price of that off-roster handgun. And that is because the market and the supply of these off-roster handguns is limited because of California's laws. Another express exemption that California law enforcement officers benefit from is California's magazine laws. Now, if you're familiar with the state of California, there is this thing called the magazine capacity ban or magazine capacity restrictions where normal law-abiding individuals cannot possess or have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. And this is under California Penal Code 32310. Now, there are challenges to this law, just like there are challenges to California's handgun roster case. But normal individuals are not allowed to possess magazines that hold more than 10 rounds because California deems them to be large capacity magazines. That is a legal definition. That is not my definition. But California, again, exempts law enforcement officers from this law. And to find this exemption, you look at California Penal Code 32405. And what this states is that Section 32310, which is the magazine restriction law, does not apply to the sale to, lending to, transfer to, purchase by, receipt of, possession of, or importation into the state of a large capacity magazine by a sworn peace officer as defined in Chapter 4.5 of Title 3, Part 2, or a sworn federal law enforcement officer who is authorized to carry a firearm in the course and scope of that officer's duties. So again, an express exemption where they get to exercise fundamental core Second Amendment rights. Again, there are challenges to these laws trying to actually get back the rights of normal law-abiding individuals, like the Duncan v. Becerra case, which challenges California's magazine ban and restriction laws, and even the Reyna v. Becerra case, that was a challenge to California's handgun roster laws and restrictions. So there are cases trying to win back our rights, trying to make it so that everybody in the state of California, if you're not a prohibited person, can exercise these rights. Going further, you can look at the recent actions in instituting an ammo background check or eligibility checks here in the state of California. When it comes to these eligibility checks, normal individuals like me and you, if we walk into a gun store, we have to go through a standard or basic eligibility check. But again, the state of California exempts law enforcement officers. And to find this exemption, you look at California Penal Code 30352, subdivision E7. And what this states is that essentially law enforcement officers are exempt from these eligibility checks. Again, the state of California says that they don't have to go through a background check to purchase ammunition, but normal individuals like me and you, we do have to go through a background check for the ammunition purchases. And the last example and big category that law enforcement officers are exempted from have to do with waiting periods in the state of California. Normal individuals like me and you, we have to wait 10 days to take possession of a firearm. Law enforcement officers don't, as well as normal individuals like me and you, we have these 1 in 30 laws where we can only purchase one semi-automatic handgun within a 30-day period. We have to wait 30 days to get another one. Law enforcement officers don't. And even further, the expansion of that 1 in 30 law, expanding it to semi-automatic centerfire rifles in a 1 in 30 period. Again, law enforcement officers are going to be exempt from that. But normal individuals like me and you, we have to wait 30 days to get our second semi-automatic centerfire handgun or semi-automatic centerfire rifle. So what's the major takeaway from all this? I think it's very clear that the state of California, for whatever reason, has decided that it favors law enforcement officers. It is categorically going to protect that class of individuals while infringing on the fundamental rights of all other normal law-abiding citizens, even citizens that they know are not prohibited individuals, individuals who have CCWs, COEs, FFL03s, have purchased firearms, handguns, rifles that are in the system, the state knows are not prohibited people. It still says that, hey, we don't trust this class of individuals, these normal law-abiding individuals, but we will carve out exemptions for law enforcement officers. There are also other categories of individuals that they tend to favor. There are Hollywood exemptions in some of these laws, but pretty much across the board, when the state of California is instituting a new gun law or gun control law, you can almost always expect that there is going to be some sort of exemption for law enforcement officers. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and you like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell because that helps the channel analytics, helps us spread the word about the Second Amendment, and also helps spread the word about things like this that are going on in the state of California. So as always, thanks you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars. This nation will be maintained by armed scholars.